Unreal Engine 5. It's the future, it's almost here, and it's dope. All right, hey, what's up? I'm Jay, and I wanted to make this quick video because Epic unleashed some details, some videos, and everything about Unreal Engine 5, which is coming up. I already did a video on that MetaHumans kind of reaction thing, so I just wanted to break down what was released today and how that affects like people like me and people like you as a character artist in the game industry right now and just someone who's like a 3D art enthusiast. These are some of my thoughts on why I think UE5 is just super sick and that you should be stoked if you're not stoked. I don't know what is the matter with you. So UE5 has been on the horizon for a while. Unreal Engine 4 is already great and there's been awesome updates, but there's some specific features to UE5 and a kind of overall update to the engine experience that developers have been looking for a long time. Okay, so Nanite. Nanite is the first of two features. Really, there's Nanite and Lumen. Okay, and that's the geometry, the way that the engine handles geometry to render it, and Lumen, which is their global illumination. It's really their lighting solution. It handles bounce lighting and reflections and everything. All right, so Nanite. It's essentially able to render like extremely dense polygons close to camera and then dynamically fade it out so that your eye can't really perceive that it's not an even detail everywhere. Nanite is allowing artists to make extremely high resolution meshes here to render in the world. Like I can't really emphasize enough, at least in this demo, and we'll get to some of the knock-on effects of that, but in this demo, like the order of magnitude is huge. Like these rocks that we're looking right here, which are photo scanned, they're millions of polygons, right? And in the games right now that we're making in UE4, a rock would have 10,000 triangles, 50,000, I guess. So it is an extreme difference, all right? They're able to do that because of this dynamic resolution thing, and that also solves another problem here, which is LODs. So this not only gives us extremely high resolution models that just go straight in the engine that you can see up close, but they're dynamically tessellating, right? As they move farther away, and if they're out of camera, they're not rendered at all. So this dynamic tessellation as it's moving away from you, this is replacing LODs or levels of detail, which are a model set that right now have to be created. Now, for the last handful of years, we're using tools, third-party tools, which could cost tens of thousands of dollars, by the way, to automatically make them. And then there's still some setup. It's, it's a little bit, it's not a breeze, let's say. So this being dynamic, essentially an artist just has to worry about the high fidelity version of the model. I mean, you can see here how detailed it's looking. And it's also using normal maps in not such a strong way, because the model detail is so much. Now, this temporal super anti-aliasing, I'm kind of interested in because it's been one of the features of UE4 that I don't like so much as a character artist, which is the temporal anti-aliasing. Basically, temporal anti-aliasing is kind of a noise. Everyone's kind of familiar of the like normal rasterization, kind of like where it just draws multiple and you see those jaggies and just kind of draws multiple to try to smooth that out. Temporal anti-aliasing is the pixels are moving, so you don't get the same sharp stuff. It looks good on environments. It looks good on things that don't, move too much, but it doesn't look very good on very thin things like hair, very small details like eyelashes, grass, that type of stuff. And, those are the kind of details that, I'm trying to preserve. So at least at small resolutions, like that's the other thing about temporal anti-aliasing or all anti-aliasing really is as the image gets smaller, those things become more impactful. So I'm really interested in seeing this new anti-aliasing. That's kind of interesting too. Now, the next big feature is Lumen, their lighting solution, their real-time global illumination lighting solution. UE4 already has ray trace rendering. If you have an RTX card, you can take advantage of ray trace rendering right now and, presumably also in UE5. And that has its own applications, and ray trace rendering obviously looks sick because it's calculating all the light bounces. This Lumen is showing stuff that visually looks, close to on par. I mean, really, you're splitting hairs at the difference. Lighting is one of the most important things for an overall visual and image. And in 3D, it's always been something that elevates work. And then when you get into real-time rendering, there's always been a huge bottleneck there because, you know, calculating lighting is expensive, making good lighting is hard. As I say, ray trace renderers can take hours to render a frame. We're talking about rendering 30 frames a second. So there's a huge, huge difference. One of the most, if not the most exciting aspect, honestly, of UE5 is their lighting solutions. And what's dope about Lumen is you're getting this physically realistic looking global illumination lighting, and it's giving you the reflections. And so what that's replacing is right now, currently, when you're doing AAA games, is especially on Unreal Engine, is it's not all real-time lighting. You do baked lighting so you can get a higher quality visual of global illumination. And those bakes take hours and hours and hours. The lighting artists will set up bakes on remote machines sometimes, or a bank of machines, and do them overnight. There, you know, sometimes a level will take 20 hours to bake lighting. That's not uncommon. And you're doing that because you're getting these soft shadows like we can see here that we're getting in these global illumination renders here. You're getting like bounce light and soft shadows and stuff. So rather than calculating that in real time, they'll have to bake it into texture. So everything has its own, all the environment has its own second UV set. You know, so this is just completely removing that. For the real-time object, so say you're a game character and you're moving through a world, or you have a shiny weapon or something, right? It has to be reflecting the world and getting light. And so a lighting artist goes in there and places these reflection captures all over a level. And they're these spheres that you don't really see in the game. You see them in the editor. And as a player moves from one sphere to the other, it'll go from those reflection captures. So it's, again, like an approximation to fake it, and it'll fade in between them. But again, that's replacing this. So you're getting a higher quality visual at runtime, they're saying, and it's replacing things. So it's faster and it's better. I mean, that, okay. I mean, they're moving volumetric clouds. You know, they can change the time of day and atmospherics immediately. It's like superpowers. An amazing addition to this that's empowering developers even more is this integration with Quixel Bridge. I mean, they easily pull up the browser in the engine, and then they just drag and drop what they want into the game. That's just so sick. That's it couldn't be easier. You really couldn't do a better integration, and it's crazy what that means for not only independent developers, but like just at-home artists, concept artists, people doing films and stuff. I mean, you're instantly, you know, you have access to all these photo scans. You just use them for free, and the render looks sick immediately. I mean, now I'm a character artist, so I'm speaking a little bit out of my discipline here, but I can tell you this like world partition system and idea is also a big one, especially if you're making outdoor environments, if you're making huge levels. You know, it's two things. One, it's how it streams in, that it's streaming cells. Again, they can dump from memory, and then it's also being used to collaborate so that multiple artists can work, and they just have like, it's almost like they have a map and they just have coordinates that they're working on, and it's only loading that. And that again solves production problems that, you know, I've seen throughout my whole career, that it's hard to work on a level more than one person because of checkouts and conflicts. And this is just, it's great for both reasons, not only for gameplay and speed, but for collaboration while you're authoring the levels. All right, and take a look at the character stuff. So there's some more awesome stuff. Obviously, character rendering is sick. Something that I've been excited about since their implementation in UE4 is the strand-based hair. Their skin shader is obviously pretty dope. Their eyes are always really good. You know, we know that from metahumans too. So their rendering of characters is great. The UE5 also has like a new physics. So things like this scarf and capes and, you know, costume elements are going to look better. And then this real-time IK stuff is going to be a big deal as people utilize it too, because games like Uncharted or Last of Us that Naughty Dog make, they've put a lot of technology into being able to smooth out animations. Animations is another huge part that people don't really think about when it comes to immersion, believability, and awesome characters. And, you know, just janky animations, ones that pop, ones that slide, ones that don't feel natural. All that stuff's going to play a role in that impression, that experience that the player has. So being able to be enabled with tools out of the box to blend and have dynamic things happen in real time to help animations look more physical as the character moves around the environment is great. That, you know, like I said, developers don't have to make these tools from scratch that could take years of iteration. So it's just another one of the awesome things that the engine's going to come with. I mean, look at this. This isn't a cinematic, you know? I mean, it is, I guess, but it's real time? Bam. Look at that geometry. Okay, now this character is using nanite, but that's not typical from what I understand. Nanite is going to be used for like the environment's static meshes, essentially. We'll say it that way. And then meshes like the character we saw that has deformable pieces. That's most likely going to be, you know, somewhat similar, although I imagine higher resolution, and it should be able to take advantage of dynamic tessellation, so you wouldn't have to input LODs, I assume. But it would need to be, you know, quads and like deformable, especially the face and everything. In this case, they're showing like a monster robot type of deal. So it's really static meshes. There's not deformation per se. They're just meshes that are rotating. So for that reason, they got to take advantage of nanite. And so they went ham with it. And Aaron Sims over here, just like, I mean, look, that's all Geo, all the designs on the armor plating. So that's pretty sick. It's a cool way to show off and flex the nanite on a character. But yeah, back to this control rig. I want to say, like, keep like doing, like having the rig in the engine and then animating it. The advantage of this that I see are that you're able to see the character in context in the game. You're in the final game. Right now, there's a big disconnect. So far in all the projects I've been on, there's not a solution. I know that there are some in-house solutions for some big franchises that, you know, have had the time to set it up. But for the most part, the way that like character art will be authored is to look good in the engine, and then what animators are seeing is like in Maya or Max or something, and that's not at all. So they can't see the character rendered. They see just the mesh. So sometimes I even make temporary artwork so they can see where the eyes are and stuff. So it's not ideal. Having the rig in the engine and doing it in the sequencer is great because, like I say, you're seeing it in context. And then, you know, like it just gets rid of a lot of the time wasted going back and forth between the packages. And like, say you want him to step somewhere in the world, or you want to make sure the lighting is right, or you know, not only are you doing it, you're making sure it fits in the world. You can play it back. You can jump in and play it all real time. So this, to me, this is obviously the way cinematics are going to be made, or, you know, whatever you want to call these, like the in-game kind of temporarily takes away control and then the camera kind of zooms back to the character like we're seeing here. It just makes a whole lot of sense to do it in the engine itself. So I love that. Yeah, so I'm super excited about what this means for game art, especially. You know, I know there's other developers out there, you know, that are probably, you know, either super excited or kind of freaking out about what this might mean for their job, or both, a little bit of both. But I love this. You can download the early access right now. You need some space. And also this demo here, this demo that we just saw, Valley of the Ancient, it's kind of interesting to note though, that demo itself is 100 gigs. And most likely that's because of the amount of geo, the amount of like vertices, you know, because it's such a heavy amount of rocks and stuff. It's a lot of rocks. So I don't know, that kind of begs the question, like, our next gen game's going to be like 500 gigs, like, you know, because that was some insane stuff they're saying, and that's not a big game, it's a little demo. So I guess you just kind of you can't go that crazy with all the different kind of assets maybe. But, you know, the fact that Warzone is like close to 200 gigs, and, you know, that ain't no next gen, you know what I mean? So I'm curious what that means for storage, or if this is just a wasteful demo, I don't know. But another thing that's interesting, I thought, is the minimum system requirements that they listed on their website. which would also kind of indicate, you know, Unreal Engine 5 and things you'd be making. So let me read these. This is the minimum system requirement. NVIDIA GTX 1080 or AMD Vega 64 with 32 gigabytes of system RAM. All right, now that's the minimum. Now to run the game at 30 frames a second, so I don't know what the minimum is, but just to run the game at 30 frames a second, they recommend a 12-core CPU at 3.4 gigahertz, an NVIDIA RTX 2080 or a Radeon 5700 XT, and 64 gigabytes of RAM. I mean, that's not too crazy for a workstation, but a lot of people don't have this stuff right now. At least it's not super common, right? It will be more common, but to me, it's kind of exciting because this is, you know, this whole presentation so far, you know, from what they showed before in the unveiling, and then now this is getting more and more realistic, you know, and it's happening, and it's really truly next gen. I think that's what I'm so stoked about. You know, I just want to play with all of it and let's do it. You know, I mean, it's exciting because we've been making games the same kind of way for the same kind of SKUs for years. And here it is. It's like a glimpse into what the future is. This stuff runs on PS5. It takes advantage of a lot of the benefits of having things like an SSD and a better CPU and RAM. So I am just super excited about it. I love that it's a real like shift, you know, that it's really a new wave. So for developers, I think it's sick. Another caveat, something that's great, another knocking it out of the park detail is that you can transfer Unreal Engine 4 projects you can go from UE4 to UE5. And they tried to make that, you know, as seamless as possible. So maybe not every custom project would work. If you're on a project, it'd be worth looking into it. But that's another key feature. We were talking about it before this came out, that would be the play if they could pull it off. And they are doing that. Last gen's not going to be able to use Nanite and Lumen. Doesn't look like it anyway. What they're proposing is a pretty seamless transition if you're already working on a project. Now, that's all good for developers. Let's talk about, you know, you and me and just making art and doing stuff. So if you're interested in game development, if you're interested in game art, either getting a job, moving up the ladder, improving your skills, whatever, you know, I get kind of those questions. You know, I'll often be asked, how do you get a job in the game industry? How do I get better? Or, you know, all that stuff. This is a good time to be jumping into this stuff. You know, if you can catch UE5 at the early stage here, it's most likely going to be the most popular game engine to make games, and not just games. All this stuff is going to be hugely beneficial for the film industry, commercials. So forming a knowledge base of UE5, getting comfortable with it as a tool, making assets that work in it and look good, building some things in your portfolio that utilize it is going to make you more attractive to getting jobs. So it's something to think about. You know, there's some people in the industry now that just don't have the time to be able to learn something like this. So it's kind of an edge that you have. It's definitely going to be a part of here for the future. So that would be my recommendation if you're interested in making game art or games and stuff, is to get in, you know, early. I've got some parts on the way to build a machine to start playing around with UE5 as soon as I can. So if you're interested in that, you know, and seeing what we make, just going to make some cool shit, then, you know, subscribe and stick around for that kind of video. But yeah, I just wanted to make this video quick and just give you my take on what's going on. It's a big deal. All my game art nerds friends are talking about it and hitting me up, and we're just super stoked, especially the game artists, you know. It just feels like a real next generation leap and one we've been waiting for, and I'm just super stoked about it. So the future looks good for real-time art, and I can't wait to get my hands on it and start playing around and making stuff. All right, so that is it for this video. Thank you for hanging out. Unreal Engine 5, freaking dope, looking dope. If you're excited about UE5, let me know in the comments below. What are you excited about? What are you trying to get your hands on? I'm super stoked. So that's it for this video. I'll catch you in the next one. I got the org making of coming up pretty soon. And until then, peace out.